Okay, I even got this happening.
So, Mage Titans, once again, here we find ourselves in momentarily sunny Manchester. Sorry, audio person, we didn't get to do this the right way. How's that? I guess you can kind of hear me because I can hear me. So, all right. Who's heard of Magento 2? Is anyone familiar that this thing is going to happen here pretty soon? All right. Let's see. Yeah. There we go. First of all, hey, I'm innovative too. I put my contact stuff at the beginning, so you guys can already start firing off all sorts of musings and thoughts and angry ideas at me. I want to thank again David Manners for inviting the entire world to email me. So you can expect probably at this point about a month delay in a response. Anyway, that's a couple of ways to get in touch with me. Obviously, I'm going to be here this evening as well, so feel free to come up if you need any kind of motivation to come up and see me. If nothing else, you can be quite divisive about it. I have lovely new Magento stickers to hand out, so please feel free to come up and grab one. So, batter up. What's on deck? Magento 2. It's been quite a journey, right? Because about 2010, someone, Yoav Kutner, announced that there would be a Magento 2. Which was really exciting because Magento 1 had been out for a few years, had made such a huge difference in what was possible, what people even realized was possible with open source and commerce endeavors. And then there were just some minor distractions, which I can actually make even more fun of now, now that we're no longer a part of eBay. Just these curious misadventures with involving X's and fabric and all sorts of stuff. So, but then what happened was they actually finally, I kept spending so much time in Culver City that eventually they just said, all right, we'll just hire you. How's that sound? I was like, okay, that's cool. And one of the first things I got to do when I joined Magento, so this was actually, I was still sitting at Blue Acorn, I was just getting ready to transition over. And they said, Ben, what do we say about Magento 2 at Imagine this year? And that's 2014. The first question was, should we even talk about it? I said, well, yeah, we probably should mention it. I mean, people sort of know it's out there. I said, well, you know, what do we do? I said, let's come up with a timeline that's realistic, that we know we can deliver on, and just tell them that. And so we did. And I remember, like at Imagine, people were very like, wow, that's a really long way away, right? The end of 2015 before we're going to get Magento 2. And so we, being the clever marketing organization that we are, we said we're going to give them little, you know, it's like a little pre-breadcrumbs along the way, right? So we're going to have this developer beta in December. And then we did that. When we delivered the beta, people started to say, I believe. And then move on, we go to our release, the release candidate. We took the developer feedback from this, right? So we engaged with the developers and we said, look at the platform, look at what we have rendered from mountains of code. And we said, once this is done, that's good. The platform will be nice and stable. And then we'll go on building features and going into the merchant beta. Things did change a little bit. I mean, it's unfortunate, but we had to make some of these changes. And anytime anyone got really upset with us, we just said, hey, it's beta. It was like pre-alpha, whatever. But here we are, like right here. We're so close. There's actually a new little blip right here was the release candidate, which we released on, I don't know, 2 days ago, where I was in Kiev at the office there. It's really neat when you're around, you know, a couple hundred people who help make Magento actually happen. Take out a few pounds lighter. But when being in the Kiev office, so it was really neat. The executive team said, "Hey, you know what? We've got 5 places we're going to be, or was it 4? Maybe it was 4. I don't know. There's Barcelona, there's Culver City, there's Austin, but the executive team wanted to be with the Kiev team because they're the ones that have worked so hard to make Magento 2 a reality. And so on the same day that we were celebrating our independence from eBay, we also released the release candidate for Magento 2. Of course, the obvious question is, why do we need Magento 2? Who knows? I know Yvonne does. We can blame him for parts of Magento 1, though, so it's okay. He'll be up later. You can heckle him all you want. It's a comedy club. So why do we need it? Well, you actually heard some of the reasons already today. We've had some great presentations. It's going to get easier and easier for me to do my job because I won't even have to give presentations anymore. We'll just have great presentations from the community come up. So, got it? Okay, good. There's lots of reasons. There are a few of them up here. In general, we just wanted to make it more modern and more better, right? So let's see. I'm going to do something. I've actually not been able to do this yet, so we'll see what happens. There's the long list of reasons. We know from a developer perspective, we've gotten a lot of feedback from people. This is over the years, and this is about Magento 1, right? Things that were, certainly were good at the time, but just needed either updating or outright replacing because, as often happens in the world of development, things move on. Times change and people move on. And we have, interesting things in PHP like testing and namespaces and all this stuff that should make development easier, better. But really, we couldn't put it into Magento 1. We had to have a clean break. Every once in a while, you've got to go full major. If you didn't see the talk from the gang from Session Digital earlier today, this is like semantic versioning, right? That major version change means you've broken a lot of things going backwards. And it's a good time. I didn't do that. Was there something in the lasagna? Because I think I just saw myself. All right, we're going to all crowd around. Everyone's going to come up here. We're going to crowd around. It's actually a perfect time for me to cut over. Here, I'll jiggle this just a little bit. No? Yes, no? Yes, no? It's like technical issues, I think, at every single conference I've done in the last little while. Huh. Anyway, they're working on it. This is why they pay me the big entertainment dollars. All right, so quick joke. Quick joke. Let me see if I get it right. I suck at telling jokes. 2 DBAs walk into a NoSQL bar, but they left. No tables. That's... It's a Mac. It's not even supposed to have a blue screen of death. All right, so I don't need my slides. I've actually talked about this a little bit. So where was I? We've heard of Magento 2, Wax Rhapsodic about Kiev. Okay. Right, so we needed to, there's a lot of PHP developers out there, and when I walk into PHP conferences, now this is a friendly audience. When I walk into, there we go, when I walk into PHP conferences and I'm wearing a Magento shirt, it's like a target. Usually someone comes up and they put their finger in my face and I had to touch Magento once. And it's we all know what it's like because we've done the work, right? We've learned, we've taught ourselves. It's stepping into someone else's idea about how things work, but it's not even just how MVC should work. It's also the whole e-commerce domain, which if you've ever tried to build your own e-commerce app from scratch, you really get an appreciation, I think, for what Magento gives you. But one part of my job is actually to reach out to this broader PHP community because they're doing a lot of work and they're working in the space and there's this great tool in Magento to use. But how do we make it accessible to them? And we do that by meeting them where they're used to being. So when they open up a project, they don't want to see a completely foreign ideas about how file structure should be organized or templates should be done. They want to see some familiar things in there. They want to see composer.json in there. And so Magento 2 was our chance to have a nice clean break and implement a lot of these things that PHP developers know and love. And of course the advantage of that is now if you need an OAuth implementation or some other thing that someone is already built and is maintaining and it follows PSRs and it's in packages, you can just put that in your composer manifest and you've got it. This idea of sort of this meta level, don't repeat yourself, use the work of others wisely. This is good stuff. This is kind of at the heart of what we're getting at. That I would say in testing, and you'll see me harp on that in a moment. But now we're going to try something. We'll see how it goes. Hey John, how long am I going? I took my name tag off. "20 minutes, okay, cool. I can make up stuff for that long. So I think this instance here, I'm pretty sure I'm not running in its full, optimized mode. But this is really nice, actually. This is literally every presentation I've. There we go. At least I don't have an embarrassing wallpaper. That's a very cool, realistic Calvin and Hobbes. As amazing as Calvin and Hobbes is, Magento 2, way better. Hopefully not as funny. So let's see. This is, okay, I'm backwards here. Fun. So what I wanted to show you is we talked to people about how things laid out. We did a lot of user studies, right? But then we also did really neat things here with, let's say we'll go to the product catalog. Yeah, the menu, it's on the side now. That's at least 5 more horsepower. But you've got these interesting grids now. So, as a store administrator, maybe I want to have the quantity on hand visible next to the SKU. So you can do that. That's pretty neat. Maybe I want to have, I want to apply some filters about, let's see, name, maybe it'll contain an A. I'll apply the filters here. And I can do that stuff. I can sort things, and this is all fun and dandy. But then I can also do stuff like, I can save this view. So as an admin user, I don't have to recreate this every time I go in. I mean, this is just one tiny little example, but it shows that there was some serious thought and maturity that went into making this. Now, behind the scenes, so I'm going to switch back and play. Here, mouse. There, mouse. Sweet. So for the developer standpoint, who here has done admin HTML in Magento 1? Who here hated that experience the first time? It's okay, you can all leave your hands up, it's cool. It was, again, it's just, it's once you get it, it actually is pretty easy to build a grid in Magento 1 with if you have a custom entity, it should not take you that long. It's a matter of getting it though. And part of the problem with Magento 1 is that there's inconsistent ways in which the same thing is built. So 2 identical output, 2 modules that build basically the same view, they might have some just arbitrary differences in how they're implemented. Maybe the grid is declared in the controller. Maybe it's declared in layout XML. Maybe set use Ajax is done with the magic setter. Maybe it's done by set data. There was no rhyme or reason to any of this. So we're not there yet, I think, but we're working to make sure that the same things are standardized, right? You should be able, as a developer, to go into the code base, compare 2 different identical views or analogous views, and come up with the delta from the code and the markup that shows you what you would need to change to implement that feature yourself. It's very clear in my head when I say it, but I get to say it a lot, so if it doesn't make sense, just ask. Essentially, the code should be a good example for you, always. We also wanted to make some of this work easier. For example, like ease of composing grids. I say this, so of course I'm paid to get up here and talk about all the rosy good stuff, but I started actually writing a grid for a custom entity using data source in the hackathon in Zurich. I still don't have it working, right? So I'm still having to learn this stuff. So for me, what that says is there's some work for us to do to make sure that you have the information you need. If you are an experienced Magento 1 developer, Magento 2 should be okay for you. Like you will be able to take a lot of that knowledge A lot of the constructs are there. We just kind of move some things around. Some things are very different, but a lot of your knowledge will port forward. And so what we want to do is make sure that when you say, okay, well, I know I need to build a grid. I know there is an architecture to that. How do I do it? That the necessary information is there. So for me, it's my job, like on my flight to China tomorrow, I'm going to probably finish up this grid. The whole time I've been documenting like the different steps and sort of the choose your own adventure of the code base, right? And put that out there. So, I mean, by no means should you take what we're saying at face value. If we think something is a certain way, but maybe when you start messing around with Magento 2 and you find it's not, let us know, or contribute to the docs, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. From the admin user side, the navigation, we cleaned it up. We're working on standards of like how people are supposed to modify the admin menu, right? I know some of you have opened up those installations and like the menu bar as a multi-line wrap because everybody thinks that their one little configuration value just needs that top level setting in the admin. Another interesting thing we did was not exactly revolutionary, but we attached performance stories to all of these changes. So that grid that I showed you, I actually looked at, I traced that feature through Jira. And part of the acceptance criteria was that on a given hardware configuration, the filter should return, if it's a list of, if you have 2 million SKUs, I think it was 2 million, a filter or sort action should return a response in under 2 seconds, or the feature is not complete. This is a really important step to make sure that the admin is snappy. Admin users don't want to feel the application that they're working with. They should just know where to go. Like everything should just be intuitive and just work. The second things start moving slowly or it misbehaves, they start to experience the application in a way that none of us want them to. Hey, no, I have to qualify this performance as core thing because people would snicker. So EE and CE are going to come out at the same time, and that's going to happen this month, right? One of the things that we've decided going forward is anything that is related to performance is going to be a core feature. So for example, full page cache is now moved to CE. And it's actually just essentially based on, it essentially requires the use of varnish, okay? And there are some dogmatic discussions to be had about this for sure. But the end result is Magento 2 moves pretty quickly in production mode. And you can be assured that anytime we come up with a performance feature, some performance aspect, that it's going to be part of the core. Scalability, so problems that you have in architecture to deal with that when you need to queue up millions of messages or process hundreds and hundreds of orders per second or something like that. That scalability concerns, those are going to be reserved for enterprise. That's how we're going to kind of carve out some value for the enterprise space. And then of course enterprise will get some features. And no, I don't know those features yet. They may actually already have them. I just, given that we just settled the RC, I haven't talked to marketing since then to see what's there. They probably wouldn't let me talk about it right now anyway. And also, so we also provide our performance benchmarking toolkit. It's available online. You can actually run these benchmarks for yourself. Please don't ever accept benchmarks from a product company about their own product. You should be able to replicate their results and call them on their bullshit if they are bullshitting. What this means for merchants is you should be able to do more with less in terms of Magento 2 performance. It's going to be an interesting time for the hosts to adapt to the product, but I think there's a number of people who've already started doing the work. I think the Sanasi crew are here, and I know they were working with, I think, Inshu earlier just to test, like, hey, let's check out our stack for Magento 2, and things are just working. Also, if the front end is moving more quickly, well, that's probably pretty good for the customers. We know that that's great for search engine ranking. That's also great for conversions. Yeah. Integrations. So there was this Gartner study. They did a pretty broad survey of e-commerce stores. Actually, we've dropped the E from e-commerce. I'm going to have to start dropping that from my speech. The average store has 14 integrations, external integrations. One of the stores surveyed, there were 350 external integrations, and I'm pretty sure a heavily medicated developer team behind it. And so, given this reality, we knew and we know that it's very rare that you have Magento operating in a vacuum. There's order management, enterprise resource planning, et cetera. All these things that people need to add on to Magento, because Magento does certain things very well, and then there are other things that it is not intended to do. And so these external systems help merchants get their job done. And so we looked at our core code, we looked at our plugin system, we looked at our APIs, and we said, hey, we're going to change this. So for example, the service layer that was mentioned is one of the really interesting approaches to facilitating external integrations. Essentially, we wanted to also make some of the application less decoupled. We also wanted to make sure that you're able to, essentially, extensions don't have to reach so far into Magento's domain to do things, because once you start tying in too many places, that bigger surface area, it's more likely that things are going to step on top of each other. Again, this is a goal. This is something that we've worked for. In practicality, I think once we see people adopting Magento 2 and they start doing this work, we're going to get that feedback as to how well we did with that. Okay? So what this means for the merchants, probably more integrations, less cost to effect those integrations, and they're not going to have that experience where they've got two different integrations that are kind of crossing over into each other's territory. Customization. So this is the jewel in Magento's crown, the ability to customize. I can still remember the first time I realized, having come from OS Commerce, that I could make changes to Magento's core behavior and still be able to upgrade. I thought that was really neat. So we've really tried to make the developer experience with Magento 2 better. It is definitely more sophisticated. Developers are going to have to step up a little bit. But we've also tried to meet you along the way and give you what you need to get your job done. For example, breaking the configuration XML out into very distinct, functionally identified and constrained files. So di.xml is going to deal with issues of dependency injection. With those, we also issued XSD, so schema definitions that let you know what is valid and what is not valid. And the important thing is, if you're using a proper IDE, it'll be able to read those documents and actually give you real-time feedback on what you can put in these documents. And then you've heard about some of the other guys have done a great job presenting some of the other tools that are involved. Using Composer for dependency management, semantic versioning. We'll have a separate platform version that's starting at 100, and that's separate from the marketing version, right? So marketing is what the merchants are going to know about. Platform is what developers care about. It allows us to do some interesting changes as Magento 2 matures. Adopting PSRs, basically modernizing to meet up with where modern PHP development is, and then also our fabulous DI, dependency injection plugin system, making use of some AOP, which definitely is interesting. It seems to turn a lot of heads as I talk about it, especially with PHP folks who have kind of written Magento off. What this means for the merchant: better, faster, cheaper development. Now, I'm going to put the star there, right? Because there's an important thing that you have to remember. You can write better code from the beginning with Magento 2, but you're going to have to write tests. Magento 2 core has a lot of tests. I think those tests aren't nearly finished yet. But I'd say by the time most stores are spinning up on Magento 2, You have full coverage of the core, and that's unit tests, functional tests, and integration tests. And if you're writing custom code and you're not covering that, or if you're including modules from third parties and their code isn't covered, you might as well throw out all of the coverage in the core. And when I say full coverage, I don't mean, we're testing like the Boolean returns are truly Boolean, just full sensible coverage. And you all actually can have a say in what is full and what isn't. Along with this, along with the upgrade scenario, product roadmap. So once 2.0 comes out, and by the way, I keep saying this because we've been talking about a roadmap for like a year, but once 2.0 comes out, I've been told, and so I'm going out here publicly saying it so that I can then go back and say, well, I just told everybody. So we're going to have a product roadmap, so you're going to be able to see the features that are coming down the pipe, and that thing is going to be based largely on what we know we're working on from our backlog. Quarterly feature releases. So this is a regular release cadence that you all can rely on. These two things should help you sell Magento 2, right? Because you say, hey, okay, if you start on a Magento 2 instance, dear merchant, guess what? Every 3 months, you're going to get a whole new set of features for free. We'll constantly be updating the platform in between those quarters, though. So you'll be able to watch all of this happening in GitHub. And by the way, you ensure that testing, you ensure with testing that your upgrades are working. We ensure that they're working for us, and you ensure that they're working for you. So this is my thing. I'm going to make people so annoyed because this is essentially how I'm going to get this tattooed on my forehead. I'm going to say this when I shake hands from now on. In Magento 2, untested code is incomplete code, period, okay? I mean, and I'll leave it to you to define the bounds of that. But essentially, you need to be thinking about testing. How many people are doing testing with their Magento instances today? Yeah. That's a few. And that's actually great, because Magento 1 is a real pain to test. Magento 2, it's possible, and everyone's responsibility. We as a company have to help you with that. So when I put an asterisk next to this, testing comes with a cost. It comes with a cost on the front end, but you pay that cost. You pay that cost so that you don't have unpredicted costs down the road. And so what we do is we, as a company, give you the instruction, give you the help. Maybe I'm gonna quit flying around. I'm gonna fly Vinay all over his place, and I'll take his daughters to school. It's fine. And he's just gonna have to do testing for everyone. Teach them testing. I want Magento 2 to succeed in part because it's a well-tested application. Right, Magento 1, we had a big problem with people writing bad code, and they were breaking releases everywhere. There are people still stuck on 1.4 because things are so blown up in their code base that they can't move. We should be able to avoid that in Magento 2 with tests. So if anyone's not clear, I'm a fan of testing in Magento 2. Just keep that. Speaking of resources, we have done a lot of interesting things. We've got this Magento 2 certified agency program, Magento U classes. A few people from our core, Vinay, myself, have been teaching Magento 2 fundamentals class. There's online self-paced study right now. We'll continue to build stuff out here. By the way, I keep meaning to update this. M2 certification coming. What this means is that we are going to be working on it in 2016. I'm not promising to have it delivered because we write our certification tests based on really working experience, real-world applied Magento knowledge. And we're not going to be able to do that until we start seeing a lot of Magento 2 instances. So there will be Magento 2-based certifications. We will start working on them in 2016. They may not be ready until 2017. Don't know yet. We also have a new Magento Connect. So it is going to be released at the same time as Magento 2. All extensions will have to all current extensions will have to be re-verified. They'll be going through a static code analysis tool. All new submissions will go through this static code analysis tool. This tool has two main purposes. One, to ensure that the code is in general up to snuff, and two, that it's not stolen code. This practice of taking someone else's extension, changing the namespace, uploading it, and then selling it for 1/10 of the price. Those days are gone. Anyone caught doing that is dealt with harshly. And also Magento, we will be hosting all the code. So when you purchase an extension, you'll actually be getting it from our servers. It gives us a chance to review all the code for these extensions. We also have basically a totally new era of collaboration with the community. Vinay is here. David and James was here. I don't know if he's still here. So David Alger from Classy Llama, James Cowie from Session, Damian Luxman something is from Magento. Actually, no, he's working for I think Max Cluster now, but also Magento, and Vinay Kopp of Vinay Kopp Enterprises is. They're now part of our new GitHub moderation team. We have so much interaction on GitHub, on our repository. The community has actually made Magento 2 a fundamentally different product. If we had not opened up for pull requests, it's been amazing to see the participation of people already. And so they're going to help us triage issues and come up with a nice sort of consistent experience and timely responses when issues are posted. We also have a docs team. Our documentation is actually pretty good. I mean, it's better than Magento 1 because it exists, right? But we have tech writers on staff. They really care about what they're doing. They have met with experts from the community to help us figure out where we need to put coverage first. I step through the installation docs every couple of weeks just to make sure I can install Magento 2 based on the documentation. But if you go to DevDocs, in the top right-hand corner, there is an edit this page on GitHub. They actually, our tech writing team taught themselves how to use Git, how to use GitHub, and so they publish our stuff from GitHub. You can actually make a pull request if you find documentation is incorrect or insufficient. We know, this company knows that the community is by far the greatest asset that exists. Magento is just another interesting idea that never got traction without the community behind it. And I think everyone in here should know this, but if you're here, you're part of the community. And you need to make sure that everyone that you touch when you go back home knows that they're part of the community as well. And so with that, I can say that right now, it's 500 of us that actually get paychecks from Magento. Now, we're owned by this company called Primera. And I know, because I've been told by the executive leadership team, that part of Primera's interest in us, in Magento, is you all. It's the community. They know that there's so much value and potential here moving forward that they said they've taken a chance and they've invested in Magento. But it's really cool to be part of a 500-person company instead of a 30,000-person company. Right? It means a lot more. It feels more real. It's the Magento that I kind of remember from the days of Roy and Bob and Yoav. That's it. So my contact information again. Are there any questions? Okay, Mr. Sander Mangle that gets the VIP award for bringing me butcher fresh osseworst from my favorite country of the Netherlands. Thank you, sir. It was delicious. We got the handheld. It's not number whatever this one is. Oh, you can shout it out. I'll repeat.
Okay. So, great presentation. Lots of cool features, but full-page cache on Magento being varnished. Why?
Cancel everything I just said. I'm gonna go vomit. You can have your osseworst back. No, it's this will play really well in the video later. Did you just talk about vomiting on stage? So the question for the camera is why use varnish as a full-page cache implementation? I'm actually not the right person to answer that because the people building the feature are smart, and I'm not. No. So We have, well, so I should actually say that there are two implementations of it. There is a PHP implementation that essentially you use as a developer, right? And then, but the intent is that in production mode, you'll use Varnish as your essentially, basically using it as the reverse proxy that it is. Now, it is not a hard dependency though, right? Because you're able to through DI point to use whatever mechanism you want to use. So if you're relying on Nginx, for example, you can. But that's about as deep as I can go. But I'm guessing though it's kind of the dogmatic thing of like, why not make your application faster so you wouldn't need to have a dependency like this?
Well, it's more that now Magento is betting on Varnish to be the caching mechanism of the future, and maybe in half a year there will be something better.
Not so. So the retort is that we're betting on it to be the caching engine in the future. No, we've actually this entire time we've been really careful to not build in an assumption that we will always be using Varnish. So again, where we fall over to Varnish for presentation concerns, all of that is subject to is I would say managed by, but it's subject to. It's dependent on classes that can be changed via DI. Again, so the implementation can be rebuilt. Case in point, I mean, just different concern, but the templating engine. We're sticking with PHTML. We've changed the architecture a little bit, but literally one line of XML, and you can point it to a different template processor. And if you want to know how easy that is, when we brought Cyril Schumacher from Australia to Austin for a product forum and flew him back because he's German and he was bored for 15 hours, he just wrote a twig and markdown parser on the flight back. And it's that easy to switch out. That is sort of the granularity of control that we have, royal we, have to do what we want. Same thing with the preprocessor, right? We settled on less as a preprocessor because if you look in vendor, there's this Oye Jorge module that does server-side processing. There was one for less in PHP. There wasn't one for Sass. Now, if you want to do something with Sass, please, by all means, write it, release it, open source it. One line of XML, and you can change which preprocessor you're using. Another question?
Okay. Will the new Magento Connect be a package repository? Will you be able to declare dependencies even for paid extensions?
So the question is, will the new Magento Connect be a package repository declaring dependencies? As far as I know, yes. I mean, your composer manifest, you will create. You will. If you have dependencies, yes, they must be declared. How this looks from an administrative standpoint, like let's say this paid extension relies on this paid extension, I don't know that we may not have solved that one for V1, but it is essentially, there's an analog out there, it's called Torin Proxy, it's by Jordi Baggiano, creative composer and maintainer of Packagist. We couldn't use that, and I had conversations with him that convinced me that we couldn't use it, and he agreed. So we came up with our own solution, and I've asked that we be allowed to open source that solution for others if we can. I don't know where that stands, but I've asked. Maybe one more question? Do you have time? Another one? Down here.
Yeah.
Oh shit, not you.
It's an easy one.
It's an easy one. Oh great.
Controversial one.
Oh yeah, of course.
Extension developers always complain about code theft.
Yep.
Mostly made on Twitter. IonCube encoded modules. That's the way we protect our code, or that's the way we don't protect it. It infuriates both parties. People who can't read the source, or people who are selling something and it gets stolen. How are you solving that with a hosted version of Connect? Are you encrypting modules? Are you going to do it on their behalf, or not at all, and it's all over?
So Ben just said, or asked, Lasani, not me. Just asked about encrypted code, right? Encrypted code in modules. This is, boy, and it is. It's a hot button topic. There are some people who I think know how to do it well. For example, the example I always hold up is Unity, right? So Boris has these really big extensions. They're very expensive. I know he wants to protect his IP. And so he has a couple of files in his installs which are IonCube encoded. The development experience is still not great with those because then you have to beg for like a developer license just to cover like .dev or something. And if you want to do local, these introduce a lot of problems. So first pass, from what I understand, we will not allow encrypted extensions at the very beginning, at the launch. Eventually, we may, but we have to see the unencrypted source. We are going to be heavily encouraging people to take a similar open approach like Unity does, where you just have a couple of key files encrypted, and the rest of the extension is open for modification, because that's how it should be. We may or may not allow like completely encrypted code for some future version of Connect. We will, however, any code with any level of any kind of IonCube encoded files will be marked as such in the application in Magento Connect. So, like if you're looking at extensions, you will see has encrypted code. Again, we'll verify it. We'll make sure that it is not doing anything nefarious. But it just gets in the way. Now, from the business sense, if I'm an extension vendor, how am I confident about this? Well, we let Connect be a Wild West for too long. And that was a big failing on our part. And there are a lot of people who aren't in that space that probably should be, because it just wasn't worth it. Either they saw what was in there, what was happening, or it happened to them, that someone stole their code. So we'll be absolutely blacklisting anyone that is caught pilfering code. We'll be trying to collect. Essentially, we're going to try and stop pilfered code from even making it into the system. We won't catch it all the time. There are some people with some very clever ways clever ways of stealing other people's IP. But once we get notified of it, we'll handle it. We'll make a determination. The blatant copying that's taken place in the past won't be tolerated anymore. Even if I have to go to our Connect servers with an eraser and remove the stuff myself. This is a critical part of our success moving forward. Is we really want high quality, high value, very well curated extension list. You're not going to see 9,000 extensions in the new Magento Connect. I don't know what the right number is, maybe 1,000. I don't think we need 50 Facebook-like extensions, It should, because it's not a good experience for the extension vendors. It's not a good experience for the merchants. Okay, it's probably enough time, yeah? Yeah. So, guys, thank you very much. I'll be around. I have stickers. Love you.
You hear us? No. Right. I think it's really good to hear the focus that Magento are putting onto the community. Obviously, what they're trying to do with Connect there, and also all the you guys in the room are obviously a valuable part of that. It's worthwhile mentioning. I just noticed some of the activity that's going on Twitter. We're actually trending above the FA Cup.
Yes.
Which I think is pretty cool, right?
What's the FA Cup?
I'm leading into when we went to watch the Manchester Derby last time we came. So it took me and Ben went to watch the Manchester Derby last time we came. And what was it that lady said about Fellaini?
I can't repeat it because I would probably lose my job.
Is it lanky streak of...
Yes. Tony was there. I will say this, folks in the UK really know how to stretch the metaphorical limits of the English language, especially at a football match.
Yeah. Thanks again, Ben. Okay, the next on stage is my friend Tony from Space 48.